I have dreams.
Times wrestlers were the biggest assholes. Number 1, CM Punk. Now there are plenty of names to put on a list like this. We could easily put guys like Hardcore Holly on here, but it feels that CM Punk gets a pass more often than not. Look, when it comes to his fans, CM Punk is a complete angel, but the former WWE champion has had his douchebaggery moments that are hard to ignore. Now there have been rumors that CM Punk isn't exactly a pleasant person to work with backstage. Though there hasn't been much credibility to those rumors besides Kevin Owens notably detailing a t-shirt incident with Punk in 2005, but Punk's AEW run is full of moments that showcase his ego. One of those moments is when Punk went into business for himself and buried Hangman Adam Page on live television. Of course, the story is a bit more complex than what we saw, as there's an argument to be made that the former AEW World Champion had it coming due to Page going off script in a face-to-face promo leading into Double or Nothing. But there's no argument for what Punk did in the infamous media scrum after All Out 2022. Before the backstage fight that got him fired, Punk went out of his way to start trouble with one of the reporters that he believed was friends with Scott Colton, aka Colt Cabana. Punk went on a tangent about Colton and essentially buried the fellow AEW star. He also trashed the executive vice presidents and, to no one's surprise, Hangman Page, as Tony Khan sat there watching Punk's crash out unfold. But we as viewers may not know whatever truly happened that ignited that backstage brawl later on, but Punk certainly fired off a shot that escalated the situation even further. Number 2, The Ultimate Warrior. Now, The Ultimate Warrior was one of the biggest babyfaces on the planet during the 80s and 90s, but the man you saw on the television screen was vastly different from the man backstage. There's no doubt that The Ultimate Warrior is a legend in the business, but there are plenty of stories about the WWE Hall of Famer that paint him in a bad light. A lot of those bad stories involved the Ultimate Warrior and his fans. Perhaps one of the biggest was when the Ultimate Warrior went out of his way to ignore a Make-A-Wish kid. John Cena is infamous for granting over 650 wishes to Make-A-Wish kids all around the world, but in Bret Hart's autobiography Hitman: My Real Life in a Cartoon World of Wrestling, he recalled the Ultimate Warrior ignoring a kid by claiming that he was too busy. In reality, the Warrior was standing around the locker room talking to some of the boys in the back. He never met the kid who waited around and was suffering with cancer, and this left a very sour taste in Bret Hart's mouth. But that wasn't the only incident with a fan. The Ultimate Warrior encountered a young fan at an airport and was extremely rude towards him. Now, there's no context on how the kid acted, and it's been noted that sometimes fans can be rude when hounding wrestlers at the airport. But the funny thing about this is that the father's kid was a general manager of the channel that was airing WWE programming. Unsurprisingly, the channel was ready to cancel the show, but Vince forced the Ultimate Warrior to make an apology video for the fan. A Warrior during this apology video was less than thrilled about doing it. In fact, it took him various takes just to make an apology. However, it only gets worse, as in the early 2000s, the Ultimate Warrior made some extremely hateful and derogatory remarks about the gay community. During a speech at the DePaul University, he said that gay and lesbian couples have the same disease as priests in the Catholic Church. He even took shots at Heath Ledger following the Oscar winner's death, claiming that it was a good thing that he was gone because the negative influence is now removed and his own child has a chance for a full recovery. The Ultimate Warrior never apologized for these remarks. Now, the Ultimate Warrior left behind an unforgettable legacy, but there's no denying that he wasn't the nicest person on the planet. Number 3, JBL. Now, it's well documented just how much of an asshole that John Bradshaw Layfield is. The guy was a notorious bully backstage, and there's numerous stories about JBL hazing and harassing WWE stars. One of the most infamous is the big mistake he made in heckling Steve Blackman. Now, Steve Blackman's martial arts act wasn't a gimmick. The guy was a legitimate fighter that can knock your teeth down your throat. Perhaps JBL wanted to test this by grabbing Blackman's butt. That was an odd sexual harassment thing that the former WWE champion did. Hardcore Holly described the entire incident in his book, The Hardcore Truth. JBL grabbed Blackman's ass and the former WWE star said he doesn't play that shit. Knock it off. Surprise, surprise, JBL didn't knock it off, so Blackman just beat him like a government mule around the airport. But that wasn't the only incident. The Blue Meanie story is the most widely known. Apparently JBL wasn't happy with the Blue Meanie outing him as a backstage bully, so he beat the tar and feathers out of him at One Night Stand in 2005. The beatdown required 12 stitches. The Blue Meanie actually threatened to sue WWE and JBL, and in response, WWE signed him to a short-term contract and booked him to beat JBL in a match. This was a match with the chair shot heard around the world. Meanie got his revenge and a nice paycheck out of it. JBL has been known to torment the Hardy Boys, Mark Henry, The Miz, Justin Roberts, Joey Styles, and Mauro Ranallo. In fact, the bullying of Mauro Ranallo was so bad that he had to leave the company. Now, allegedly, there were people who weren't fans of Ranallo because of his vast knowledge of pro wrestling. JBL was one of those people. Ranallo went from a SmackDown commentator to NXT due to the harassment he received from JBL. And now the former WWE star has never confirmed any reports of being bullied by JBL, and Ronaldo has even denied them. But the period of rumors sparked an onslaught of past employees who shared their terrible experiences working with JBL. Number 4. Austin Aries. It's always a shame to write down Austin Aries because he had so much potential to be a big star, but Austin's biggest enemy was himself. Whether it was TNA or WWE, Aries was known for being a big pain in the ass, something he's admitted in the past, but some incidents throughout his career firmly put him in the asshole category. One of them was in 2013 when former TNA announcer Christy Hemme accidentally said his name wrong as he and Bobby Roode were coming out of their tag team match. Aries clearly wasn't happy and confronted Hemme, who eventually corrected herself and properly named the duo, but then Aries proceeded to put his crotch in Hemme's face. And to the credit of Aries, he did apologize for the stunt and TNA disciplined the former TNA World Heavyweight Champion. But fast forward to 2018 when Austin Aries and Johnny Impact headlined Bound for Glory. These two were having a great match, until the finish. Actually, the finish went off as planned, but Aries went into shoot mode by not selling Johnny Impact's finisher and storming to the back. Aries claims that this was all part of the plan, but he's not been back at Impact Zone since 2018. Since that time, a slew of sexual abuse allegations popped up in 2020. To be clear, this was nothing more than allegations, as charges were never filed against him, and he actively denied any of these claims. But it's been notable that Aries has been unable to get work from any top promotion since 2019. Believe it or not, he's still an active wrestler, but the former TNA World Heavyweight Champion has burned too many bridges to the point where he's wrestling in front of a few dozen people. Number 5. New Jack. Well, there are assholes, and then there's New Jack, who managed to avoid serious prison time for the crimes he committed in the ring. Now, the former ECW star didn't have an easy upbringing. In fact, in New Jack's book, New Jack Memoir of a Pro Wrestling Extremist, he detailed watching his very own father stabbing his mother repeatedly. New Jack grew up in violence, and his gimmick wasn't that much different of his own persona. But there were plenty of periods throughout his career where this guy should have been tossed into prison. In 1996, New Jack purposely tossed Vic Grimes off a 40-foot high scaffold and even admitted trying to kill him. This comes after Grimes accidentally injured New Jack in a previous match at Living Dangerously. The injury was serious as New Jack suffered a cracked skull and brain damage, so it's understandable that he was pissed, but attempted murder isn't the solution to the problems. But that wasn't New Jack's only time he tried to kill someone in the ring. In 2004, he stabbed William Jason Lane several times during the match. This was under an indie promotion called Thunder Wrestling Federation, who brought in New Jack to fight the indie wrestler. Lane was a kid on the new block, so he didn't particularly know how to deliver work punches, so he stiffed New Jack several times. This pissed off New Jack so much, he immediately pulled out a knife and stabbed Lane in the back and neck several times. Lane collapsed to the mat and rolled out of the ring, but New Jack was really heated and followed the wrestler. He stabbed him several more times before several other people intervened. And New Jack was arrested and charged with multiple felony counts, but surprisingly, Lane dropped the charges if New Jack promised to train him. New Jack definitely had anger issues that made him an extremely dangerous wrestler to work with. It's amazing that he never went to prison for his crimes, but maybe that says more about the wrestling industry who continue to book the ECW star after these heinous acts. Number 6. Randy Orton. And we're not talking about current Randy Orton right here, we're talking about the young Randy Orton, who was not a nice person. Now, he wasn't on the levels of New Jack or even JBL, but Orton was very immature during his first couple of years of his career. The second-gen star was known for his quick temper, which hurt several careers along the way. To highlight just how quick Orton's anger became, the former WWE champion poured baby oil and tanning lotion inside Rachel Lowen's bag full of her personal belongings because she didn't recognize him. There were also claims that he defecated in a bag as well. Orton has slapped interviewers in the past and cruelly pranked some of his co-workers, and there was even a wild report from former WWE writer Court Bauer that bordered on sexual harassment, where Orton would come into the writer's room, put his hands down his pants, pull out his little Jimmy, touch himself, and then say, "I'm Randy Orton, shake my hand." Oh, you don't want to shake my hand? You're big leaguing me? That's effed up, man. Should I tell Vince and Steph that you won't shake Randy Orton's hand? But Orton's most memorable outburst to fans was him losing his cool during a match with Kofi Kingston. In 2009, WWE were pushing the former Intercontinental Champion to the next level by feuding with Randy Orton. But one spot killed Kingston's main event push. It was a memorable stupid spot where Kingston botched the finish of the match against Orton. Kofi was supposed to take a punt kick from the former WWE champion, but he kept getting up, pissing Orton off in the process. That led to the repeated stupid lines and a stiff RKO. Orton complained about Kofi and he was effectively sent back down to the mid-card. There was also the Mr. Kennedy incident where the former WWE star worked a tag team match with Orton. Kennedy hit a high back body drop on Orton that resulted in him landing on his shoulders and neck. Reportedly following the match, Orton got the help of John Cena to complain about the former US champion, and those complaints got Kennedy fired. Although Randy can't change the past, he's changed as a person throughout the years, and Orton explained on Logan Paul's podcast why he was such an asshole during this time. I was an asshole, I think because I wanted people to respect me. I don't know, I just know I grew out of that phase. I thank God that I did, but I see the footage that I didn't know the camera was rolling, maybe at that autograph signing and there's an interaction with a fan and it's picked up. Then now they're doing this doc on A&E that they're just kind of finishing up, and I've seen some of this footage from 10-15 years ago. I'm like, oh my god, that's horrible, but that's just kind of who I was. It wasn't coming from a place of confidence. I think it was coming from a place of, it was my armor, man. That I was an asshole and that maybe I would get respected that way. Maybe it was a little bit of fear and I took it as respect. Either way, I was fine with it. But luckily, I was given a second, third, fourth chance from Vince McMahon coming up when I would get in trouble or I'd have to get sent away for a couple of months or I'd have to get fined a second or third time. I am so blessed. I just had the right guys in there to yank my ass straight, make sure that I was walking the straight line the times that I did veer off. No one seems like a very chill guy now and seems to have learnt from his mistakes as a youth. Number 7. The Dynamite Kid. Now, the Dynamite Kid is a tragic story. A very talented performer who succumbed to drug and alcohol abuse, but even without the drugs and alcohol, the Dynamite Kid sounded like a complete asshole. The Dynamite Kid was a notorious prankster, but his pranks weren't in good nature. Some of his practical jokes included drugging wrestlers on the road, and Bret Hart and Bruce Pritchard have chastised Dynamite's cruel pranks, and he had a ton of enemies because of them. But his personal life was 10 times worse. That's because Dynamite was abusive towards his wife. On the dark side of the ring, Michelle recalled how he forced her to sleep in a closet one night because she didn't drink alcohol. That came after a long drive home where the Dynamite Kid purposely drove erratically on the road to scare his wife. But the big incident took place in '91. Now it should be noted that the Dynamite Kid was deep into his alcohol and drug addiction, and his behavior didn't just terrify his wife, but also petrified his kids. The abuse took so much toll on his wife that she started having suicidal thoughts. She knew that a divorce was necessary and she informed her husband by giving him a one-way ticket back to England. But the former WWE star wasn't happy about that, so he put a beating on Michelle and grabbed his shotgun and threatened to shoot his own pregnant wife in front of their kids. Thankfully, it didn't go any further than that. There's a reason why the Dynamite Kid isn't in the Hall of Fame, and it's because of how much of a terrible person he was in real life. Number 8. Logan Paul. Now, was it really a surprise that our favorite influencer / scammer is on this list? Here's the thing about Logan Paul. He's a really talented athlete. While his boxing matches leave a lot to be desired, there's no denying his ability in the squared circle. Add in that he has natural charisma, then it's easy to see why he's hanging with the top stars in WWE. Of course, it also helps to have 20 million followers on these social media platforms. But even before Logan Paul stepped into the WWE, he had plenty of controversies that almost saw him get cancelled numerous times. One of them was his time documenting a forest in Japan. He got mountains of backlash for that 2017 incident, but Paul's controversies didn't stop after he signed to WWE. The YouTuber turned wrestler was exposed by CoffeeZilla for a CryptoZoo scam in 2023. This all started back in 2021 where Logan hyped up his CryptoZoo, which was a video game where users would hatch and grow NFT animals that would increase in value as they grew. But Logan never delivered on his promise and 130 individuals reportedly lost over $4 million. Logan tried to shift the blame to his developers, but nobody was buying it. A class action lawsuit was filed against the 30-year-old, which is still ongoing to this very day. And number 9, Vince McMahon. Now, for years we've heard about the strange behavior of Vince McMahon, from his hatred of sneezing to his weird do's and don'ts that wrestlers have to abide by. Oh, don't forget the embarrassing situations that Vince would put his performers in just for a laugh. But Vince's weird quips backstage didn't come close to all the allegations that have come to light throughout his 32 years as owner of WWE. There's the Ring Boy scandal regarding allegations of exploitation of underage boys in the 80s and 90s. Then there's the multiple lawsuits in regards to his sexual assault or harassment. From Sable to Rita Chatterton, the environment for women in WWE wasn't a particularly safe one. In fact, former WWE star Tony Atlas spoke about the abuse that female performers went through throughout his time in WWE.
We would have been looked upon in today's society as some of the worst human beings walking the face of the earth. I mean, we abused the hell out of women. All of us did. You know, they were like a toy for us.
With years of allegations, it wasn't too shocking that McMahon paid women in hush money to keep the sexual misconduct under wraps. The story was revealed in the Wall Street Journal that Mr. McMahon paid 4 women a total of $12 million in the last 16 years. Though McMahon denies these claims, the lawsuit is so detailed that it's hard to believe that Vince is telling the truth. And in his history of being hit with sexual assault claims and Tony Atlas's eye-opening testimony, then it's hard to turn a blind eye on just how sick of a human being that Vince McMahon really is. But there you have it, folks. Times wrestlers were the biggest assholes. Be sure to leave your comments down below, and I'll see you next time with some more wrestling content.